Hey folks, and welcome to the crash course in how to do the hard mode mechanics and where to find them for each of the bosses for the Dawn of the Infinite. I'm not going to go through the boss mechanics themselves, and I'll be releasing a video on Wednesday of the actual clear, because me and the guys in Calamity are planning to do a full hard mode run day one. So if we also redo the dungeon later when the PTR realms are up again, we will obviously record that for you. So there's 4 bosses with hard mode mechanics. They're fairly straightforward once you figure them out. It just takes a little bit of time and finagling, which is why this video is here. So you've got bosses 1, 2, 3, and 5. So Chronikar, the Manifested Timeways, Blight of Galakrond, and then you have Tyr, who is the last of the hard mode tactics. The rest of it for hard mode is just do it without dying. So with any further delay, let's get into Chronikar. Now, for Chronikar, you need to take a hourglass into the fight and have her destroy it when she leaps. The hourglass does have a timer on it, so whoever's going to pick it up, you do need to be wary of it. Chances are it's probably going to be your healer that picks it up, because you can't cast damaging abilities while holding the hourglass. So healers, restoration druids, shamans, things like that don't need to offensively do damage to heal will be okay to pick this up. Otherwise, I'm sorry to say, DPS, one of you is going to be taking the hit on this, making sure that you place it down just before the leap and getting out. So warlocks, demon hunters, anyone with high mobility that can drop the action bar and then get the hell out of the circle before she leaps, you're fine. Now, 2 questions I can hear you ask: what does it do when she jumps on it, and where can we find it? Well, answering that first question then, she gets a 15% attack speed increase. Now, for the Warlock players among you that are watching this video, you're just going to be laughing, because it's like, oh, well, Curse of Recklessness is a 20% attack speed reduction. Yeah, well done. Curse pretty much negates the hard mode difficulty, which your tank's going to enjoy, and then it's just a case of do the other mechanics as normal and kill her without a problem. As for those that are asking where to find this, as you can see, we have the map up. Again, we're using Wowhead maps at the moment because the PTR is unavailable, and if you look at the overview of the map for the dungeon, it is a mess to navigate. So this top left corner of the screen is where we enter, and you do your dodge, they open the doors here, and then you come down the steps where you're dealing with 3 packs. What you're going to want is, as you come down these steps, you're going to want to take a right, and by this pillar here is where the hourglass is situated. So as you run in, look down to your right, and that's the hourglass. Someone will just need to pick it up once you've dealt with the packs, and then take her down into the boss fighter space, which is just here. Do the fight as normal, have her smash the hourglass, and Bob's your uncle. You've done the first achievement. Congratulations, well done. Now we move on to the second one, the Manifested Timeways boss. Now, we're going to load up the map slightly, and then we're going to zoom out for this one a bit, because we need to see the entire fight space. So here's the second map. It's not particularly large, except the achievement for this boss is you need to activate the portals. So on this map you can see the 5 locations. These are the portals of choice, and for those of you that are into sci-fi, as my friend Nathan pointed out, they look like the Stargate SG-1 gateways with the runes, if you've ever watched that particular program. If not, Google it, you'll see it. Stargate Atlantis, things like that. Now, in order to activate these, you need to pick up one of the mobs that look very much like the Manifested Timeways. So this is the model in question, and they're basically sand elementals with armor, moments of time and things like that. But basically what they do is they cast an ability called Chronoburst. Now, Chronoburst you actually need to utilize. The reason for that is throughout this entire fight space, as you're clearing all the ads, there are translucent sand elementals moving around that are quite small, that are out of phase. As a result, you can't attack them, and you can't interact with them in any way, shape or form. However, what Chronobuzz does is it pulls them into phase, making them hostile. So you will end up pulling these elementals, which is what you want to do, because if you then kill them or they detonate themselves in one of these gateways, you'll see a orb of sand being created, and you need 3 detonations essentially in order for you to have enough sand to power each of these gateways. That's a total of at least 15 small little elementals that you have to detonate. Now there is one large armored elemental that moves around the fight space. He's probably the one where you're going to want to activate 1 or 2 portals, with your healer making sure to not dispel too early, unless again you have fast DPS that can get to an area where there's a large clump of elementals. And you do want to aim for about 3 elementals per portal. And I say about because 3 is the minimum to activate it, but if you end up pulling, say, 6 or 7 elementals and you detonate them, then you have wasted elemental charges there that you could move to another portal. But this particular hard mode, you need to activate the portals prior to the boss starting. And once you've done that, the only change to the fight essentially after that point is that from the portals you've activated, a line from portal to boss will periodically appear, and it will just do AoE damage. It's a stand out of the line, don't get hit, as it occasionally spews crap out of it. Does quite a lot of damage, but if you're smart about where you place these portals, what you can do is you can basically just negate half of the fight space and not care. So you can see here that bottom left and top right form a perfectly straight line, which then means that if you do top left and you activate these 3, you get your hard mode achievement, but then that gives you this entire bottom right hand quadrant or half to do the fight space. And because the boss is rotating the fast and slow, you just have to manage and make sure that you're in the right place for the dispels and you dodge the orbs. Little bit of more work for the healer because you're not following all the way around, but for caster DPS that means you're going to be able to stand still a little bit and tunnel. In previous incarnations of doing this, we actually kind of constantly ran around, which meant caster DPSs were really punished by this. Thankfully, not so much. Healers though, sorry to tell you, but it's going to be healing intensive. So kill the boss as quickly as you can. Probably recommend saving Bloodlust for that one. Now, moving on to the next boss, the third boss, the Blight of Galakrond. It's an oozling fight, essentially. For those of you that don't know, starts off with a globule of ooze, and it will reanimate dragons throughout the fight. So, what's the hard mode? Well, the hard mode's actually really, really simple. You can see on this map here, this top location is where you will be fighting the boss. Now, this corner here, there is a little cliff, and at the top of that cliff is a small fragment. After a while, it will come down and drop onto the back of one of you. You basically just need to stand under it as it appears. Again, when I do a rerun of this or when we do the content, I'll link it below so you can actually watch it. But you just have it land on your back. You could have, and what you then do is you then stand in the tank buster. So tanks, pick it up, do it. Hell, I can do it as a warlock. You just stand in the tank buster, the frontal cone, and the ooze will get reabsorbed into the boss, and the boss then gets a reunited buff icon, essentially. No increase in damage was done, and all in all, the fight didn't actually change in any remarkable way. It's just get the child back to mummy and call it a day. Really, really easy hard mode achievement. There's not too much else to discuss for Blight of Galakrond, but thankfully we needed an easy one because unfortunately Tyr is a bit of a pain. So moving on to Tyr then, ignoring Iridikon, because Iridikon doesn't actually have a hard mode. He's just can you beat him before he kills you all. So this is the map for the Tyr fight space, with you spawning on this left-hand platform. You then fight your way through, dealing with all the ads. And the hard mode is there is an interactable icon up here on the top platform, the most northern platform. You fight your way up to it and you interact with it. Now, what this will do is it means that when Tyr spawns, and he spawns here in the bottom center of this platform, you're going to then end up with a black morass or a violet hold type fight in which portals are created. Now, you don't have to do anything fancy to close these portals, but what the portals themselves will do is spawn ads. It's just 18 waves of ads that you've got to contend with while dealing with the boss. So these ads will spawn. They will spawn in various locations around the room, as the portals will. And as is the nature, thankfully, it's not like Violet Hold where you had a door to protect or anything. They will just run towards you. They'll probably run towards your healer, because your healer will most likely pick up the aggro. Because due to Tyr's mechanics, there are a lot of ways in which you need to try and save space, so you're not going to be randomly running around the room. So these ads are just going to come to you, kill them. They don't do anything in particular themselves. It's just space and ad management, really. Bit of stress on your tank to start with, but that's where we're going to drop you a hint that we found for us in our testing today. Tyr seems to have a fight sequence that is a repetition of his second ability. So there's 3 abilities that Tyr does. He does a knockback, he does a frontal soak, and he does a dispel-like mechanic. Oh, and there is also the targeted frontal cleave where he puts shit on the ground. So he has 4 mechanics. Now the dispel, the healer just has to contend with. If you have it, stand out. The dispel, you don't want to dispel early, because when it does ticking damage and pulsing damage to anyone within the circle, but then when it dispels, you do a large amount of damage to everybody else. So let the healer control that. Don't do what I did and accidentally imp dispel, because you hear the healer go, oh shit, because you will end up killing the healer, which I did. Which I might put as a blooper at the end of this video, because I have recorded it. So what Tyr does is he will replicate whatever his second spell does. So he will cast four spells, essentially, within his charge bar. It'll be Tank Frontal, which is also a knockback, Tank Buster, which is also a knockback, so tanks do be wary of how you deal with that. Transcend does work, you do have time for it, but it does have a 100-yard range, so please don't slap anybody with it. He then has a Soak mechanic where the more people that get in it, it spreads the damage out. It does 1.1 million damage if it only hits one person, and if it only hits one person as well, Tyr gets a buff, so you need at least 2 people to soak it at any given point. And then the third one is a targeted triangle that's 8 yards that puts consecration on the ground. Now the exact example of what we found, and Stitch encapsulates this fantastically for the order of the bosses, is essentially the way that you remember it is mechanics are A, B, C, B. So between Group Soak, Triangle, and Tank Buster. So if you get Tank Buster, then Group Soak, and then Triangle, your last mechanic is then going to be a Group Soak as well. Now, knowing this ahead of time will allow you to prep your movement for those that want to do this, whether you're coordinated or if you're playing this solo. It means that you have something you can actually track. It took us quite a few attempts to figure this out, but, you know, it's there. And that, guys, sums up the hard mode tactics and what changes and where to find things. If you have any questions, please do comment them below. And in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed the little blooper of me killing my healer, and I will see you guys later. Enjoy your week.